right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How we feeling on a Thursday afternoon?
Better than the Blue Jays.
Better than the Blue Jays. That is factual. It would be difficult to find too many things in modern society that are worse than the situation the Jays have found themselves in.
Really? Like it was optimistic 3 days ago.
Yeah, because they beat Kansas City, and this guy's favorite player, Kevin Kiermaier, guaranteed the playoffs. And ever since then, it's been a mess.
Player.
Ever since he went Messier, they can't win a ball game.
Why does it seem like there's a hot, steaming pile of cow crap in the clubhouse that something's happened or somebody hates somebody? I don't know if it's the Manoa stuff. I don't know. It just seems like something happened in there, and everybody hates everybody, and it's just all exploded in 3 days.
Yeah, that's exactly.
You know what I
it feels
mean?
like
Yeah. It's like guys, they go up to. You were talking about their at bats last night. Some of them were comical, or it was like you described it as they looked like they were messing around.
Yeah. That seventh inning, you got Springer into Bichette into Guerrero, the top of your order. Springer goes down on 3 pitches, and the third strike swing was like a wiffle ball swing. And then Bichette comes up, same thing on his strikeout. I think he struck out on 4 pitches. And then Vladdy walks up, and you're like, all right, Vladdy, show us how you're going to get out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to strike out? Are you going to ground out, pop up, fly out? I think he flew out to right. But it was like basically almost predetermined.
There was no belief.
They were going 3 up, 3 down.
There was no belief
There's
in Vladdy.
no belief. There's no mojo. Like, Vladdy had a hit last night. It was a cheesy hit to begin with.
I know,
and
Hazy, but
it's just
what
really,
the hell
really awful.
happened right after my guy Kiermaier?
Yes.
He makes the speech, and then what? They walked in the clubhouse, and the steaming hot pile of crap was just there waiting, and then they all got mad? What happened?
Well, you know what was waiting for them was actually a competitive baseball team. That's what was waiting for them. Although, with that said, Texas was not fitting of that definition for the previous 6 weeks.
I knew they were going to wake up. I knew they were going to wake up.
It was inevitable that Texas was going to wake up to an extent, not the way that they've woken up through 3 games. That game last night is the most pathetic regular season game I can think of in decades with this team. And that is considering the expectation. Obviously, They had some awful teams in the past where there were bad games. But when you consider you got skunked the first 2 games of a must-win series, when you're fighting for your lives, you're into mid-September, you only have so many games left to go, and you get beat 10-0 at home. 10-0.
And
That's
if you're wondering where the
crazy how bad
crowd
that
is,
was.
if you're wondering where the crowd is, just talking to some casual Blue Jays fans, it's almost like, why would we even buy in when we kind of know what they are? It's like you can't hit with runners in scoring position. You can't have anything electrifying happen during a game. And it's like, you can't beat teams in your own division.
That's right.
So it's like, why are we going to buy in? And it's almost like what's shown up at the ballpark is a reflection of that thought process.
That's exactly right. And I've been speaking with the same type of people you've been speaking with. Just lifelong Jays fans who want to be believers, but are not believers. And not so much that they're out of it. They're not. They're a half game out of a playoff spot.
You're right.
If they win tonight, you know they're going to reset and say it's all good. It was a 3-game set. What are you going to do? We're still in a position to succeed. And technically they still will be. But they are so deep into the season that you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
Even if they get in, you know what they're made of.
And it's
you know what they're made of at this
I
point.
do agree. But there will be some players that would say, at least get behind us. Like, don't be a half-ass fan and say, okay, we're not winning 8-0 right now, and it's not exactly electrifying baseball, but at least get behind us.
Oh, I think it's got to be.
Do you think the Phillies? I talk about the Phillies fan base.
Oh, they
might boo the crap out of them, but you know what? There might be $40,000 in the stands.
There might be, but they wouldn't have just booed last night. They would have been throwing things on the field.
Yeah,
no kidding. They would have been a lot more disrespectful than what the Toronto fans were doing.
Like a couple of boos, and everyone's like, "Oh, I can't believe it." No kidding. They got dummied 10-0.
Yeah,
against
those
Texas.
Philly fans. They wanted to strangle their third baseman after 3 games last year.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Like guys running on the field and chasing people. So don't give me Philly, man. I don't want to hear Philly.
But the point about Philly was there would have been 40,000 showing up, and they would have been ruthless. But at least they didn't. At least they wouldn't say, "Now you know what? We're not even going."
Well, imagine you're in the marketing department after that game last night. Like, imagine your responsibility is calling people up today and saying, "Any chance you want to come out and root for your Blue Jays?"
Is it bobblehead night? Like
they better find one.
Was it dollar hot dog? Wasn't last night?
Last night was a hot dog night.
That still didn't bring him out.
You know what? I got to say this. Like, I never thought the coach should have to speak every single game, every single. Stop interviewing Schneider. Stop it. Talk to the players and ask them what the hell's going on. How many times has there been a microphone in front of Vladdy's face saying, "What's going on at the plate? What, are you not allowed to interview him or something?" Well, I don't get it. Boba shit. Like, what? Ask the damn players. Enough of saying Schneider. Why are they? He doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's like, well, tomorrow is hopefully it's a new day and a new ball game. Yeah, we get that. He's out of answers. He doesn't know what to say.
He is.
Ask the players.
But he could probably use a little bit of emotion himself. I mean,
what do you want him to start sewering guys at this particular point?
Sure, why not? Mix it up. Give me something.
The only thing I see out of him is a different color of his face, like a shade of red. Like it just gets redder and red. Like it's just. By the seventh inning, it's just tomato head.
The tint sheet.
Yeah.
You see it like a.
It's a filter. It's an Instagram filter.
Right.
It just goes from like normal, and then later, like I don't even have to check the score. They just flash his face. I'm like, yeah, they're losing.
That's right.
And it's beat red.
Yes, the blood pressure, the blood shooting to John Schneider's face.
It's just the color of his face that changes throughout the game, of different shades of red.
Right.
That's what it is. And last night it was. He looked like John Candy in the movie Summer Rental. Remember when he fell asleep on the beach?
That's exactly. And
he's got a tweet. The fans will show up when the players show up.
Yeah, there's kind of a chicken or the egg type of vibe there. I mean, I think there's a lot of. I wouldn't say apathy because I don't think that's the accurate term here. I think there's just a lot of frustration that has been boiling over all season, and then it's been building up towards this series. Like, show us what you got. Show us some life. And it's, okay, you've lost 3 games. If they were like barn burner, wow, I can't believe that happened type situation, multiple games you lose in extra innings where something just goes against you, it still would be difficult to accept, but you might be able to reason with it to an extent.
Right.
They lost 10-0 last night, and they had already lost the first 2 games of the series.
By a lot.
By a lot.
By a lot.
They'd given up like 17 runs leading into that.
Like, it's crazy.
Something crazy.
All right, do you want to hear John Schneider after the game? Because I'd like to see some sort of urgency, some sort of messaging that maybe he is handing out to the players behind the scene. And I understand baseball is a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. It's a long season. You play every single day. It's not a rah-rah sport to the same extent that others are. This is not football we're talking about here. But it's getting close when you have like 15, 16 games left to play.
Exactly.
And your life is on the line. And here's what Schneider had to say about his concerns and, if he's feeling like maybe there's something lacking with this club.
Frustrating? No. I mean, we know the guys, the character, the talent that's in the clubhouse, and we trust that, and you live with that every day, and you go out and you try to win every single day. So, as tough as the last couple of games have been, you really have to just focus on tomorrow. It's not concerning, if it was, the season was going to be over tomorrow. Yeah, it's concerning, but we got 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks ahead of us, and you have to take one day at a time. Again, it's not the way we wanted the series to go so far.
It's like a guy that's going on a road trip that's 600 miles long, and he just doesn't want to fill up the tank, and he's like, I'm not concerned yet. I don't need to fill up yet. You know what I mean? I'm just going to keep letting it ride. Maybe this thing can get the whole way without filling up. And then the wife asks him again about halfway, don't you want to fill? No, I'm not. Why am I going to fill up? And then all of a sudden you're just out of gas on the side of the road with nothing to do.
Kramer. Trying to push it.
Yeah, that's right.
On E.
Yep.
I don't know.
Like he just, I don't know. It's the same with the Leafs. Sometimes you talk to the Leaf players where it's like, John Tavares always says, well, he goes to like the execution or we're getting our chances. I think it's okay, especially in the city of Toronto. I think people can appreciate just saying, that was garbage and it better be better tomorrow. I honestly think that answer's fine.
I would
you,
rather,
Brian?
I would.
Yeah,
rather,
I agree with you.
I would rather
come out
Because
with
it is.
Yes.
That's just the dead truth. That was awful. Yes, it's concerning if we keep playing like this.
Because when you
Thank
talk like he just did, you're skirting around of, like when you say it's not concerning, that's a crock. Because anyone that's been involved in pro sports goes into his office. You know that he goes into his office and smashes 5 beers with the other coaches, and they crap talk all the players and talk about how pathetic that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, they just
stop it.
They lost 10-0 last night, 6-3 the night before, and 10-4 the first night. So that's 26. What is that?
26 runs they've given up.
26-7 in 3 games. Like, that's not good enough on any scale.
Not concerning, though.
But
not concerning.
It should
it's
be
still
concerning.
May, according to John
is what-
Schneider.
I know it'll never happen because you have to toe the line, and I get it. But leading into those interviews, it's just if the PR guy had to just go, here's some truth serum, and now go up.
See,
That's what, and he would say, this is ridiculous.
You've
I'd
been
love to
in
see that.
management. You know how people talk about everybody after the game if it's garbage.
It would be ugly.
Disastrous.
It would be behind the curtain. The name calling and finger pointing would be ridiculous.
Well, I think the PR is likely involved in that in telling Schneider before he goes up, keep your cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't say anything. Don't show anything, because they have got to be scrambling down at Rogers Center. This is an ownership group who has invested like hundreds of millions of dollars into upgrading the park.
Yeah.
And they did a great job of it, and they're going to continue to do it this offseason. They're ripping out like the lower bowl, the seats, all the stuff behind the scenes. They've supplied these players with a state-of-the-art facility down in Dunedin. They spent a fortune, which they have to. That's what you do in ownership. I'm not saying anyone's shedding tears for you, but that is a big commitment. And this team had an expectation coming into the season that they'd win 92, 93-plus games and be a lock to make the playoffs.
Right.
As of right now, they're going to miss. And there's like 20,000 people in the stands.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of wild, man. Like, I'll bet you they're begging Taylor Swift, can you come this winter, please? Can we get you in the seats? Like, if the Jays aren't going to make the playoffs, can we move up T Swift? Why can't we do that? Can we get Taylor Swift here in October?
That would be great.
Someone call Travis Kelce and see if he can work some magic for us.
By
Get Travis Kelce
the
on the
way,
line.
when you talk about the playoffs, like you're literally talking about going to somewhere to play one game.
Yeah, they're going to Minnesota likely to play one game. Yes.
Well,
I mean, 2 games. It's the best 2 out of 3.
Never know, but I think you got to get there. And we were talking off air, like even the tiebreaker doesn't break the way. Right?
That is an issue with them losing last night to Texas. Now Texas owns the tiebreak and Seattle owns the tiebreak. So you're looking at a situation here where the Blue Jays being 80 and 66, they're behind obviously Texas, Seattle. Houston's currently holding on to the AL West. That could still change. Right? And the Jays could still ostensibly end up with the second wild card. They're not catching Tampa for the top one, but they could go to the Trop, they could go to Minnesota, or obviously miss. But at this point, Texas and Seattle own tiebreakers over the Jays. So you've got to beat them by at least 1 game in the win column, right? And if you look at it, let's say Seattle goes 9-7, they finish at 90 and 72. Texas goes 9-8, they finish at 90 and 72. The Jays would have to go 11-5 to get to 91 and 71.
Didn't they do something similar recently? Like, was it last year or something? They had a series with Baltimore, or the year before, who were terrible, and they just got roasted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, they've been in this situation before where
I just can't figure it out. Like, how do you expect to light a fire? Well, and he keeps saying the players understand the position they're in, and they understand, and they understand. I'm telling you, it smells like there's a rat around somewhere. There's something wrong, and I don't understand. Usually this is like a beginning of the season where guys are like, yeah, I hate that guy, and I don't want to play, and something's really bothering me, and it lingers from training camp into the regular season. This is after my man Kiermaier's speech, where there's been something, I don't know. It's very bizarre.
Well, yeah, it is bizarre.
Now,
I don't know if it's Manoa. Could it be the Manoa scenario, Hayes?
Well, he might be an example of it, though, right? Like John Schneider went on MLB Network Radio yesterday and said he's not in a position to compete. I believe, is that how it was phrased? Like, in other words, he's just like, I'm not in the mood to do that. If you're taking Schneider at his word here and interpreting exactly what Manoa is suggesting. But if that's kind of what's been hanging around this team is players who are just not bringing it, or there's some sort of uncomfortable type vibe around the clubhouse, we're seeing the remnants of that the last 3 nights.
Well, doesn't the schedule favor them too? Isn't the two teams play each other like 7
They
times?
do. Seattle and Texas do a lot, but the Jays have a lot of games against the AL East still to go, and they're 12 and 25.
Yeah,
Against the
Tampa
AL
6 times.
Yeah, you got Tampa, you got the Yankees, you got
you're
Boston.
right. For me, I just remember seeing your face last week where you were like, they win 1 out of 4 or 2 out of 4. That's a lot. Like
That was factual.
Lock of the century. But you
Yeah.
had the stats in front of you. I was like, okay, well, even if they split or win 1, like they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's grim right now.
Yes, it is.
And it's not good. But
No, it's not.
A week from now, we can be like, they're locked.
They
they're
could.
in.
They absolutely could.
it
That's
just
the
smells
beauty of
weird.
sports is that. But again, I think what is at the core of this conversation that I think Blue Jay fans are mostly in agreement with, there might be some outliers that are eternally optimistic, is that even if they find a miracle and get in here,
Right.
what do you think they're doing when they get there? You know, if they go to Tampa, let's say,
Right.
in the wild card round, I don't love their chances of winning 2 out of 3 at the Trop. If they go to Minnesota, then they could beat Minnesota in best 2 out of 3. It's not like
If you
Minnesota
can get
somewhere.
Gosman and Barrios back to back and their lights out,
Yes.
you got a shot. Other than that,
Well,
lights
But at
out.
some
Wake
point, you're
up
going to
and
need big
bowl.
hits. But
Yeah.
that's the problem, Noodles. It's always like the bats are going to wake up. They never wake up. And Chapman has been activated. He's back off the IL. He's in the lineup tonight, but he wasn't doing anything prior to getting injured.
Yeah.
So, it's just the
But he
idea of
could
them
spark
becoming
something.
clutch.
You have to give
Yeah.
him that, Hayes.
Sure.
He could spark something.
Yeah.
They're a
having
better
him
team
back.
with him in the lineup for sure.
Zach, who's pitching tonight?
You got Gosman on the mound.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Your ace, your number 1 guy.
You got Gosman, your boy, on the line.
Yeah, my
We'll
guy.
see what he's
the
got.
haircut. Yeah.
All right. We'll see what he's got tonight.
Listen, I'm not guaranteeing a win, but I feel better that they're not going to get spanked 10-0. But I
I'm
don't
not
know.
guaranteeing anything watching what I've been seeing.
I can't
I've
either.
never shut 3 in a row off the TV where you're like, oh my God.
All right, let me ask you this. Where's your brother at, because he gets
My
worked up.
word. He sits in his backyard in his bikini and he watches the Jays and throws beer cans at the TV.
Yes.
He is so mad right now, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
See,
He
and
should
he's
be.
the pulse of Jays Nation, is he not?
Yeah. Oh, he gets overly excited when they win and he loses it. I can't imagine what he would be saying about that group of players right now.
Yeah.
Losing it.
Yeah, it's difficult to see a lot of support, man. It's really difficult to pinpoint anyone at this point. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall with Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins because this is their team, man. They've been here a long time. They've been here a long time. The GM in Boston just got fired today. He's been there for 3 years, 4 years, I believe, and he's out. Yeah. And yes, the Jays made the playoffs a year ago. They were, 30-30 in that weird COVID year, and they technically got in.
But they've never really been dialed in the playoffs.
Not even close to being like what Atlanta is. And it's funny how Alex Anthopoulos is popping champagne bottles last night when the Jays are getting roasted 10-0 at home.
Well, let me ask you this. Since Tulowitzki and Donaldson were gone and they wanted to kind of freshen things up, and those guys came in, how long has that process been? Has it been 4 or 5 years?
Oh yeah, it's been more than that. Like they truly bottomed out, I guess, in 18. In 17, they were still kind of going for it, hanging around, and then in 18, they conceded, "We're terrible. We're going to be terrible. Here comes Charlie and the Bongos." And then it was 19, 20. They started turning things around.
Charlie and the Bongos.
And then in 21, 22, 23, they've been a competitive team.
They'd be losing like 10-0, going to the coach's office. He's on the bongos with like no tire pod. Like it was just
Loving
like
life. Loving
guy
life.
was
No
such a
concerns.
happy-
No concerns, man. No concerns. But no, you're talking 3 or 4 years of the uptick now of the Shapiro and Atkins era. And if this is how it's going to fall flat,
well, okay,
something's
so
going to have to give here.
this might be ridiculous, but are you going back to something where it looks so promising and then they lose 8-1? And has it never been the same after that?
Yeah, well, I would say the loss last night is the second worst loss of the Shapiro-Atkins era. and the worst was
sorry.
up 8-1 in
Yeah,
game 2.
so
of the
not
wild
lose
card.
8-1, up 8-1.
They were up
Sorry.
8-1, then
Yes,
lost.
Up, yes.
Yes.
Up.
That loss is just crazy. It
still,
still is almost impossible to believe that happened.
Yeah.
And it's the worst loss of this administration's,
Right.
tenure. But last night, I'm sorry, man. You get skunked 10-0 in game 3 where you got buried the first 2 games against Texas and your life is on the line.
Yeah.
That's how you show up? We'll see what they're made of tonight. Hedge will be down there. We're going to catch up with Hedge.
Nice.
She's on the scene, man. Hedge is a reporter. She's doing her thing. I saw her earlier today. She said she's got the curse. Remember I had the curse when I went to Leaf playoff games?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She has the same curse when it comes to her being at a Blue Jay game.
Really?
Yeah.
Has she thought, we got to ask her, has she thought about just giving up the mic? Kara, maybe you'd like to go down to the Dome.
We'll get to the bottom of that. Jennifer Hedger in about 10 minutes live from the Rogers Center. Game 4 of the series tonight. Gosman on the mound. We got Luke Wilson in studio. Hayes and company on the clock tonight. Got to be honest, I don't love this game. When you're not seeing the board.
I know you don't, because in your head you're thinking, Philly weren't that great. They weren't that great. And you know what? Kirky Cousins could turn the switch on a dime.
Well, I'm also thinking the Vikings were really not that great, and 0-1 teams, they are inspired to make sure they don't turn 0-2. We'll see. All right, I'll make my pick in about an hour. Luke Wilson will be in studio. There was a hot mic
Joe from the
incident
bridge,
down in
please,
Buffalo.
Yes, Joe from
We
the
got to
bridge.
get to the bottom of that.
Please fix that board to Hayes and Company. It should not say just Hayes. It's Hayes and Company.
Owen Wilson leads series versus Hayes and Company 5-0. All right, I got to get off the schneid tonight. We'll get to our pick. More on the NFL news and notes in about 45 minutes. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Jennifer Hedger coming up in a few moments from the Dome. I don't know what she's going to be doing down there because I just saw Scott Mitchell tweet out the Jays aren't taking batting practice. So they're trying to mix up the mojo, I guess.
Oh, yeah?
Like, I swear I just
love that
read
one.
that.
Can't hit, but just screw the batting practice.
Right.
Give it a
It
rip.
might be just go in cold and start swinging. Like, I'm sure they warm up in the clubhouse and in the gym and all of that, but it's just, that's like no morning skate. That's it. Just go and play tomorrow night.
That's right.
So it might be putting it to the players. Maybe he had, Schneider had a situation where he went and kicked all the bats into the shower and had a meltdown.
Maybe. Although Schneider, I guess, came out and said that would be counterproductive if he were to do that. So he's not going to do that. He's trying to just stay even keeled, and it's all good. But, yeah, we'll see what Hedge can tell us about that. Jays Rangers tonight. The rookie camps are continuing here with the Leafs and other teams throughout the NHL. And I saw the news today, John Elkin has departed the Maple Leafs. And he's already been named the director of goaltending for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Dubas, who hired him, I guess, to kind of hold that role here in Toronto, the Leafs have moved on from him, and now Dubas has picked him up again. So I'm curious how many former Leaf executive scouts make their way down to Pittsburgh in the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, it might be a situation. Brad Treliving has been on record saying him and Kyle Dubas are friends. Like, they know each other. They're obviously in the same bracket. But this was Kyle Dubas's show, and he had built up a big program. So when he leaves, he probably wants a bunch of the people that he hired in that situation. And if Treliving comes in and wants to bring his people, so have it. There you go. There's the guy you wanted.
But
There's
Jamie,
the guy you wanted. Yeah.
If they're under contract, they can't just say, okay, I'm leaving here and I'm going. They have to be no contract.
I believe so. I believe you have to, obviously there's some rules to this. It's not you're just grabbing people. But you're right. I don't know what Elkin's contract status is, but that's a guy. He's not the goalie coach. He was the guy who oversaw things.
Like the position in general.
He was
in
like the
terms of throughout
goaltending,
system.
the head guy, and he's the guy that kind of took over when Steve Briere left. So he hasn't been here. He's kind of been in and out. He's a hockey school guy. That's what he is.
I've never heard of the guy.
Well, he's got hockey schools and stuff. He's a goalie school guy.
Right.
John Elkin. He was in Calgary. He's been I think he was with Arizona. He's been multiple organizations. Kyle and him must have a good relationship, so he moves on. And, now I think Brad Treliving will have to hire somebody new.
You think Sheldon Keefe will ever work for Kyle Dubas again?
Yes,
Yeah?
I do. But, I can't tell you when.
He ain't firing Mike Sullivan for him, I'll tell you
No,
that.
that's not going to happen. Although, if he's there for 7 or 8 years, eventually he's going to fire Mike Sullivan.
That's what I mean.
Like, that's going to happen. If you're going to be in management for a long, long time, you're going to fire coaches. He had no problem firing Mike Babcock. And guess what? When Dubas got the job, everyone was like, you're not firing Mike Babcock. Are you nuts?
Yeah.
And he waited until it was like it had to happen.
Yeah.
And the
In
second
2 or
he
3
did,
years, when the wheels come off of that thing and down in Pittsburgh, they all might be cleaned out of there because it's going to be scorched
But
earth.
that's
man.
why he has a 7-year deal.
right. But what I'm saying is, I'm sure Kyle Dubas appreciates how great of a coach Sullivan is. He is. But Babcock was too. And it was pretty clear Dubas couldn't wait to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he can't wait to get rid of Sullivan, but he may not love Sullivan. He may have his eye on somebody else.
Yeah.
That's not his guy, quote unquote.
Well, that's, you know what? New managers, they come in, they've got probably a couple bullets. You're not going to, Mike Sullivan, by all accounts, he's tied into ownership and senior management. So he was the guy that kind of was helping Kyle Dubas into the mix. It sounded like,
Right.
Wasn't it reported that Mike Sullivan was a part of the process?
Yes,
with
he was.
the GM search.
Yeah, he absolutely was.
So, it's pretty interesting.
So we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
We'll see what happens down the road. The Mike Babcock story is not over either.
No.
Since we mentioned him, we'll get into that a little bit later in the hour. But the Jays again are getting set up. They're trying to avoid a 4-game sweep at home against the Texas Rangers. And we said earlier in the week, it's a big series when Jennifer Hedger is making her way down there. And for the Jays, evidently, when Hedge is around, is not necessarily that positive. Let's head down to the park now. Here's our good friend, Jennifer Hedger. Is that accurate, Hedge, that you put a curse on this team or what?
I am the ultimate cooler for this team.
Mm-hmm.
I came down at the end of last season to do the Mariners series, a series that, they're hosting the Mariners. We got this. We're on our way out of the wild card. Nope, just puked all over themselves for those 2 games. I'm down here for this 4-gamer, huge series, biggest series of the season. They can bury the Rangers if they can sweep this one. Nope. 0-3, and it hasn't even been close. So needless to say, they're going to be glad to see my ass out the door after the series is over.
Hedge, can you just describe, we were talking about Kiermaier's speech to the fans where it was like, we're on our way, folks. Just keep on coming to the ballpark, and we are going to wrap this thing up, and we are heading to the promised land. And all of a sudden, a bomb went off, and it's like everything sucks. The attendance sucks, the team sucks, and everything just sucks. Can anybody put a finger on it down there of what the hell happened immediately after Kiermaier had those words?
No, and if they could, I think that they would probably be working to fix it. This series has just been stunning because, like you said, the attendance on Monday was the lowest of the season.
Bizarre.
And I realized, kids are back in school and yada, yada. Well, kids have gone back to school every September that I can remember, and the attendance hasn't dropped the way that it did this year and this week for a series this critical. And, even the crew that was in here last night, it was still a fairly small gathering. I think it was 28,000 they had in here last night. I've been to funerals with more energy than what was in this dome last night. It's like, I've been trying to think about it, and you can't compare everything back to that 2015, 2016 team, but I feel like this team hasn't really connected with the fan base yet. They haven't really had that moment, whether it be a playoff run or the bat flip or just some sort of meaningful moment where the fan base can be like, yeah, those are our guys. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but they're not a super likable team. And by that, I just mean, again, that there hasn't been the connection. When you think about the 2 biggest names, the 2 boldest faces on this team, it's Bo Bichette and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. And when Bo Bichette burst on the scene, I was like, wow, he's got the hair, he's got the face, he's got the swagger. Like this guy is Bryce Harper. This is going to be Toronto's Bryce Harper. He's going to be brash. Everyone's going to want to rally around him. It's not his personality. He would rather have his toenails pulled out with pliers than be in front of a camera. He's just uncomfortable doing any sort of media. He hates it. And that's not his fault, but he can't be expected to be the face and the voice of this team. He just doesn't want anything to do with it. And then you have a guy like Vladdy Guerrero, who seems to be a real gregarious, kind of outgoing character, but he's not comfortable doing interviews in English. And I think his personality literally gets lost in translation. Because
Hedge, what do you mean with the Bo Bichette comment there? He just doesn't want to speak for the team, or he just has nothing to say, or what?
No, he doesn't. He does not like the media. It's not like, oh, I think you guys are jerks. It's more like when the camera goes on in his face, he looks terrified. And his personality is very mild. Like, he's a very guarded guy. He smiles a lot when he's on the field, but when he speaks, I strain to try and hear what he's saying. His voice is so quiet, and that's just, you can't turn that kind of personality into Jose Bautista. Like, he's just not that guy. And so they need a guy like that, I think, for the team to gravitate to. And honestly, like, they had that guy. Alek Manoa was a guy who had that swagger and the attitude, and he loved having a camera in his face. He would talk to anybody who wanted to listen to him, and I think that was one of the reasons why the fan base really rallied around him. And he's invisible, Like, I feel like the fan base might feel like he's ghosted them, or the Jays ghosted him, or who knows what's going on with that. But the one guy, I think, who was sort of the personality and the face of this team has disappeared. And getting back to, like, why the fans aren't here, or where the lack of interest is, I think that there isn't really a connection yet that's been made.
Well, Manoa took his ball and went home, from what it sounds like, which isn't good. But we were talking about it before you came on. John Schneider, I can tell I don't even have sound on my TV sometimes, and I can tell by the shades of his face of how the team is going. I mean, every day he's got to come out and talk about it. Do you think at some point he explodes, or are we past that exploding situation where he's just trying to get something out of this group?
He gets the furnace face going, right?
Oh,
like,
big
the
time.
tomato head. Total furnace face. And he actually just talked about it in his availability, because I feel the same way. I'm like, when is this guy going to take a baseball bat to the dugout telephone and just let it rip? Like, when's he going to go in the clubhouse and start throwing garbage cans around? And he was actually asked that half an hour ago when we talked to him. And he's like, I used to be that guy, and I've changed my ways, because it doesn't change anything. It's not what these guys need. It's not like they need him to go in there and say, what the hell's going on, you guys? We got to win some more baseball games. They know. Vladdy knows he needs to hit for more power. Like, they all know they need to score runs. They all know they need to win baseball games, and it's not like they're not trying. So Schneider's sort of style, I guess, now is, it's today's a new day. This is another baseball game. Stick to what we know. Don't try to be anything you're not. And, Philadelphia 76ers trust the process. It's just that when I hear Schneider after the game go, like last night when he said, if this was the last game of the season, I would be a little bit more upset about this. But hey, there's a 162 game season, and you can't live and die with every game, and we still got 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, you only got 2 weeks. Like, the runway's about to run out here.
Yeah.
But I think that this is the sport. And Scott Mitchell tries to keep telling me this all week. He's like, Hedge, it's baseball. Like, there's a game every single day. You can't lose your mind because the team loses 3 games in a row, even if it seems like the 3 most important games of the season.
Yeah, you can.
The losing streak can end today, and the winning streak can start tomorrow. Listen, O-Dog, like, I'm with you. I want to take a baseball bat to that dugout phone, but every time I turn around, everyone's got this sort of zen look in their eyes, like, hey, don't worry, man. It's a long season. Things are going to come around, and I don't know. It's I'm a very interested observer of how this clubhouse is working right now. And when I was in there a half an hour ago to see who was floating around and who wanted to chat, weren't a lot of guys in there. Literally, Nathan Lucas was in there, and he just got optioned back down to AAA.
Right.
So I didn't have a lot of questions for him.
That's not going to help. Do you like Buffalo?
Have a good trip.
What kind of wings do you like? Do you have a spot you can suggest?
Yeah. How are you getting back there? Are you driving or are you taking the train back?
Right. Well, they're not taking
so-
BP, though, right, Hedge? Like that, obviously, this is like a reverse psychology kind of thing, but
Totally.
I don't know. I
like,
guess we'll see.
no BP. Now they got Gosman on the mound tonight, and if you're going to have anyone on the mound, Kevin Gosman's the guy you want out there. Matt Chapman has been activated. He's off the IL, and he's going to be playing third base tonight, which is great. You know, you want his defense. I just sort of feel like same thing with Bo. It's awesome to have him back in the lineup, but then, you know, you can't expect these guys to get back in the lineup and then hit 2 home runs the first night they come back. Then there's the process of, well, they got to get their timing back, and you got to, you know, it's not easy to just float back into a Major League Baseball game. So, I don't know. Everyone keeps telling me, hey, the win streak could start today, and it could all be turned around. And if they win 5 games in a row, then no one's going to remember this. But they got to go win 5 games in a row.
Yeah, they sure do. We'll see. And you'll be on the scene tonight. Maybe they get you a win tonight, Hedge. Good luck
I
with
hope
that.
so. I
Good
hope
luck with
so.
that.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Later.
There's Jennifer Hedger, who's live at the Rogers Center, Jays Rangers tonight.
Somber. It's not good.
Yeah, it is weird. Like the face of the organization, generally you would align that with the voice of the organization, right? Like the face of the organization is Bo Bichette and or Vladdy Guerrero Jr. Yet, as Hedge points out, Vladdy doesn't do a lot of media. When he does, it's through an interpreter. And Bo is a very soft-spoken, guarded guy. And I think he's actually become more and more guarded the longer he's been here. Like he used to come on our show all the time. We just sent him a note and he'd be like, yeah, I'll come on, and just, not that it was, happy hour and we're like chuckling it up nonstop with the guy. But the last time we had him on, I remember it felt a little bit different, like just a little bit more guarded.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's intentional. I don't. That's not to suggest that he's doing that to like screw people over or anything like that. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Some people are just
Vladdy
naturally.
no interviews is kind of, I don't know.
Well,
I don't want to be disrespectful because the language barrier is a thing.
Yep.
But he seems to be yucking it up with everybody on first base every inning. It's just like, whoa.
He understands. I think it's just a comfort level of the language. He understands it. If you see him being interviewed, he's answering the question as he's being asked.
Yeah.
Like in real time through his interpreter. Interpreter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he knows it. It's just comfort with the language. I get it. But I would love to see him because he is a big personality. You can tell he's a funny guy, a fun-loving guy. If he gets to a point where he's very comfortable with the language, I think it'd be awesome. Like Geno Malkin, it took him a long time to settle into the English language, and he's a funny guy. And guys love him.
But there are also guys like I remember Ichiro. Ichiro, I believe, used an interpreter throughout his career and could speak English well. But his explanation was he didn't want to say the wrong thing because he misunderstood what was being asked, or he used the wrong word that was not actually what he was meaning because he wasn't 100% fluid or comfortable. And that's understandable, and I'm assuming that's probably the same thing that Vladdy's thinking. I'm sure off the record you could sit there and talk with Vladdy about anything, and it would be a back and forth. But the lights go on, the cameras go on, and Hedge makes a great point, though. The voice box of this team was Alek Manoa. Yeah. Manoa was the guy that would talk. Manoa would be the guy coming out raw, speaking on what happened that day, what's going to happen tomorrow night.
Personality in the dugout.
Easy guy to gravitate to.
Maybe they're pissed at him that he's kind of in this situation. He could have been such a useful tool at this particular point and such a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like this has been known for a long time that he's not been around. You know what I mean? It's not like he was just sent down before the series or this all happened. This was a long time coming for him.
Exactly. Like
they would have been over that disappointment.
He wasn't here when they swept Kansas City, and it wasn't a problem.
Right.
Now it's possibly a problem, but you guys can speak to it because you generally hear, like, on the record, players are like, no, we support everyone. That's our guy. But off the record, that's not always the truth.
No.
Like,
God,
in the room, guys are like, is this guy serious? Like, you're jamming us up here, man.
Yeah,
Like,
big
we
time.
need you or whatever. And the same thing with production. Like, guys further down the lineup are like, Vladdy, Bo, could you do something, please?
Oh, trust me, the big boys, the studs like to go out to dinner, and they like to carve everybody saying, that guy's terrible, why is he up here? But the lesser lights are going out saying, is this guy for real right now? If we're not even in this predicament, if the big boys that are making all the money and have all the stardom, if they're producing, we're not even talking about this garbage.
Yes, and make no mistake. On both sides, there's a lot of mother you-know-whatting to each other.
I used to be the middleman. I used to say, don't talk bad about that guy. He's trying to do his job. Don't talk bad about that guy. Leave the coach alone. Let's everybody get together.
I don't believe that, but that's fair. I mean, I believe, like, you were the man of the people for the room and that, but I guarantee you your voice was heard.
Occasionally, I'm sure it happened.
Oh, I would rip
Occasionally,
everybody.
I'm sure it
When I was playing good, I'd be ripping everyone. You suck. Let's get a D that can pass the puck. Let's get to then when your career is dying, you're like, somebody stand up for me and tell a coach or something that I'm good.
Well, could you imagine what the boys must have said when you showed up on a PTO after you'd left the game for a year? You think they were supportive or what?
It was the most miserable experience. I walked back into the room in Carolina, and it felt like a college football movie where I was the big dog, and I walked in there, and I was a pigeon. My old stall, some pigeon was sitting in it, and I had to sit on a chair in the corner.
You were Billy Madison. You were Billy Madison going back to high school.
Yes. Wow. And I'm like, I'm a nobody now. I used to be the man. I'm a nobody.
There's a nobody sitting in your stall.
A pigeon.
A pigeon in my stall.
Full pigeon.
Yeah. Well, he's in there. It's his stall now.
Yeah, it's his stall.
Overdrive brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We will have a same-game parlay for the Thursday nighter tonight. I love it. Week 2 is already upon us. Already into Week 2 tonight. Eagles at home against Vikings on TSN. We'll tee that up this afternoon as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Luke Wilson will be in here in studio in about 10 minutes. Timo and Wilson, they're off to a lucky start, but Hayes and company going to get rocking tonight. Eagles, last time I checked, -6 on FanDuel, maybe -6.5, 6.5. It's a greasy little line for a short week. The Vikings are desperate.
Wow, I'm worried about my buddy, Kirk Cousins.
Primetime Kirk. Primetime Kirk.
He does have some wins. He did point out in Quarterback on Netflix, he does have some primetime wins.
It's like 12 and 20 or something.
Oh, I think it's worse than that.
Yeah, it's not the best, but
it's terrible.
He points to, he's got a trophy room. He's like, some of those balls are from primetime games.
I think he got one last year, didn't he? I'm pretty sure he won a primetime game last year.
I'm pulling for him tonight.
Yeah. You are a big fan.
Well, he won me over in that series.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys see that brawl in the 401?
Yes, I just watched it.
What the hell are people doing? Yes.
Two guys got out of the car and went I don't even think they squared off. They're on the 401, like rolling around.
Yeah, it was like jujitsu or something on the 401.
Insanity.
And during rush hour, like it's always rush hour, but like there are cars parked in front of, like it's gridlock.
Yeah.
One of them either ran into the other. It was a road
didn't
rage.
let him in.
Yes, and it was a road rage, and the doors come open, and these guys are rolling around the 401 in daylight.
Hey, I will say this. I drove into the studio today. I try to be, like, I'm an aggressive driver, but I try to be respectful. Like, there's some lunatics.
It's buffoonery.
Like,
it is absolute buffoonery.
On.
Like, if you live in a small town somewhere else in the country, and you got dropped off at the airport and said, you got to drive to Oshawa,
yeah, you wouldn't be able to do it.
You'd get to Kiel or something and say, screw it, I'm out of here. I'm going home. I'm not doing this.
I know.
Like, trying to get across the top of the city on the 401 is the most insane driving.
Yeah.
And I know that from my own experience, like talking to people that are not from here, they get here, they're like, this isn't normal. Like, why are people doing this?
I don't know. People.
But can you imagine you're in gridlock, you're just trying to get home, and there's two idiots rolling around the 401.
Yeah. McSorley Clark on the 401 rolling on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, going toe to toe.
Crazy.
I don't know.
Craziness.
In the 5 o'clock hour, remind me when my cab driver in New York City got into a fight with a guy. It was one of the insane fights. And I was in the back seat.
Oh, I think I know. Do we know the guy you got in a fight with?
No. It was a guy from a van that just came by and suckered him. And then he popped the trunk and had a crowbar and went and smashed his window. It was like I was watching it on TV.
That is wild.
I ended up jumping out. I broke the fight up.
I'd be running for my life if I were
there
you in
was
New
a
York.
hero-
I'm not
Take this
dealing with that.
garbage off.
Look at this on
is
TSN4.
insane.
Look at these
Yeah.
two people.
I know. It's
That's
crazy.
I don't know where that is on the 401, but that is wild. Like just
That looks
full
close to the
tackling.
studio here. That looks by the
Could be. Wouldn't be shocking.
404.
I thought you were talking about Chaser. Didn't Chaser
Oh,
get
no,
in some
Chaser
trouble
had
with
the
a caveat?
Artie Lang. Wasn't that Artie Lang?
Yeah, Artie Lang asked him
Yeah,
about that
Chaser,
story.
Chaser reached through. No, no, it was just me going to the gym. I was living in New York City, and
Okay.
I was going to the gym, and I'd take a cab to the gym because it was on the west side, and my cab driver cut off a guy, and the guy got out and came around the car and stroked him.
Oh, my God.
So then he got out and smashed the guy's car with a crowbar. It was insane.
Insanity. Absolutely
Crazy.
insanity. Yeah, I guess that was 401 and Leslie.
There you go.
But not far from here,
That's
man.
literally
That's
down the
5-10
road
minutes
here.
from here, tops.
Yeah.
Hour 2 up next. Luke Wilson in studio. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.